Think about what it feels like to work for a leader who only communicates in commands and corrections. Every interaction is transactional. You're told what to do, when to do it, and what you did wrong. Nobody explains why it matters. Nobody asks what you think. You're not angry about it. You're not looking for another job. You're just absent, physically present, but mentally checked out. That's not a motivation problem. It's a communication problem, and is one of the most expensive problems in leadership today because it's invisible until it isn't. Well, welcome back to the Frontline Leadership Podcast, where we help frontline leaders become professional leaders who transform their business bottom lines in the process. I'm your host, Craig Coyle, former Apache helicopter pilot, aerospace leader, and founder of Operation Lead. And today, we're going to dive into the world of sales and marketing to learn a critical lesson about communication that most leaders have never learned. So let's dive in. I want you to sit with this question for a moment. What's the difference between a team that complies and a team that commits? Really sit with it. When you think of compliance, what do you see? How does it make you feel? And what about commitment? Do you notice a difference between the two? Most leaders want the second team. It's the team we're proud to lead, the one we're excited to show up to each and every morning. But most organizations are building the first one, and they don't always know why. Though they seem similar at surface level, compliance and commitment couldn't be further apart. Compliance gets you production. Commitment gets you performance, ownership, and a team that shows up differently, that brings ideas, catches problems before they escalate, and actually cares about the outcome. The answer, more often than not, comes back to communication. Not whether a supervisor is talking enough, not whether they're holding the right meetings, but whether the way they communicate is actually leading their people or just managing their behavior. Today, we're going to unpack what great leadership communication actually looks like, where it comes from, why most leaders, let alone frontline supervisors, were never taught it, and what changes when we understand the principles that govern effective communication. And to do that, we're going to start somewhere that might feel like a little bit of a detour. Bear with me, it connects. A number of years ago, a memoirist turned marketing consultant by the name of Donald Miller published a book called Building a Story Brand. It was written for businesses trying to clarify their marketing message, and it worked remarkably well because it was built on a simple but powerful insight. The human brain is wired for story. When communication is clear and follows a proven narrative structure, people engage. When it's confusing, people don't push through that confusion. Instead, they disengage, not out of stubbornness. It's the way the brain is designed to conserve energy. Noise gets filtered out. Clarity gets acted on. When I encountered this concept and framework, I had a sudden realization. Miller wasn't describing a marketing principle. He was describing a human principle. I first came across this work. I was a company commander in the Army, working to rebuild a toxic organization amidst a redeployment and a mission change. I wasn't a marketer. I was a leader, but the concepts at the heart of Story Brand challenged everything I thought I knew about communicating. Why? Well, because marketing is just leadership applied to a customer. Think about what a great salesperson actually does. They meet someone where they are. They understand what that person wants, what they fear, and what's standing in their way. They show them a clear path forward, and they invite them to take a step. That's not a sales technique. It's leadership. It's influence. The customer is the hero of that story, and the salesperson's the guide. And when the story aligns with that individual's lived experiences and challenges, when the message is clear and the path is obvious, people move, they buy. Well, the same dynamic plays out on every team every single day. Your team members aren't customers, but they are human beings who are desperate to live a story that's worth showing up for. Aren't we all? And if your leaders aren't communicating that story, if they're issuing directives instead of creating meaning, you're leaving engagement, ownership, and performance on the table. And those individuals, whether they realize it or not, will be looking to fill that narrative void elsewhere. So what goes wrong here? Or better yet, why does it go wrong? Why do so many supervisors, managers, and just leaders in general, smart, hardworking, genuinely well-intentioned people, why do they miss this? Well, almost always, I think it comes down to the same thing. It's that our natural instinct is to communicate from our own perspective instead of that of our teams. It's how we're wired. We naturally gravitate to our own story, not to the one of those around us. We walk onto the floor thinking about what needs to get done, what the standard is, what went wrong yesterday. And our communication reflects that. It's directive, corrective, centered entirely on our own priorities. Now, I'm not saying any of that's wrong, but I am saying it's insufficient. Because when that's all that we lead with, we create a backwards script. A supervisor who communicates this way, without meaning to, positions themselves as the center of the story. They're the one with the answers, the authority, the expectations, and the team has been placed in a passive role. Not contributors in something meaningful, but recipients of instructions. And when people feel like extras in someone else's story, well, they act like extras. They do what they're told, they meet the minimum, they stop asking questions, and they stop bringing ideas. They stop caring about outcomes they don't feel connected to. And it happens quietly. Nobody storms off, nobody files a grievance. The disengagement is gradual, invisible, and expensive. If you're a senior leader and this is resonating, if you're watching your supervisors run capable teams that somehow never quite reach their potential, this is likely a significant part of why. It's not a people problem. It's a communication problem, and it's fixable. The shift is this. Great leaders don't make themselves the hero of their team's story. They make each team member the hero of their own. Now that sounds straightforward, but it isn't instinctive, especially for supervisors who were promoted because they were the best individual performer on the team. The habits that made them successful before are the exact habits that can hold them back afterwards. Here's what the shift looks like in practice. 1, know your audience. Before you communicate, ask, what does this person care about? What are they trying to accomplish? What do they carry onto the floor with them each and every day? The supervisor who knows their people communicates in a way that actually lands because it's aimed at a specific human being, not a generic employee. Second, we have to lead with why. Context before instruction, meaning before task. When a team member understands why something matters, why the standard exists, why the process is critical, why today's work is connected to something larger, they don't just execute, they engage. Leading with the why is one of the simplest yet most underused acts of respect a supervisor can offer. Third, paint a clear picture of success. What does winning look like? Not just for the shift, but for the individual as well. A team member who can see a clear picture of success has something to move toward. People want to win and be a part of a winning team. They want to know what winning looks like and what it feels like. And they want to know what the role they get to play on the way to that success is. And then lastly, tell your people what to do next. Clarity of action is an act of respect. Ambiguity isn't kindness, it's a burden. The best supervisors leave every team member after an interaction knowing exactly what the next step is. A lot of leaders mistake this for the individual's responsibility, and it's a grave mistake that leaves action up for interpretation. Think about it. The composer writes the notes and the musicians play them. It's the leader's burden to provide clarity and specificity to individual individual on his or her team. Everything we've talked about today raises a practical question. This is great in theory, but how does it actually scale across an entire operation? Well, structural tools and operational infrastructure empower us to tell this story consistently at scale, not just on a good day, not just when we're sharp and prepared, every day to every person on every team. In aviation, every mission begins with a brief. Before we ever got in the aircraft, we walked through the objective, each person's role, what success looked like, and what we do if conditions change. It wasn't bureaucracy. It was the first act of leadership, making sure every person in that cockpit and on that crew had the story they needed to execute. That same discipline applied on the floor and in the offices, in the shift brief, in the one-on-one, in the daily interaction, is what separates organizations with teams that are aligned from those with teams that are just checking the box. The first tool we're going to explore together is the mission. Not the corporate statement painted on the lobby wall that nobody can recite. No, a real mission, scaled to the team level, owned by the team, and embraced by every person. Next week, we get into exactly how to build it, so you won't want to miss it. Look, if today's episode opened something up, if you're starting to see your supervisor's communication patterns in a new light, the place to start is the Leader's Pre-Flight Checklist. It's a free tool that gives frontline leaders a daily structure for leading with intention. You can download it free at operationlead.com. And if you're a senior leader watching this play out across your entire operation, supervisors who are capable, but maybe not communicating in a way that activates their teams, that's exactly what the Frontline Leadership System is built to address. You can learn more about our system and process at operationlead.com. Here's the bottom line from today. Every single leader is communicating every single day. The question isn't whether they're talking. It's whether what they're saying is actually leading. When your supervisors stop being directors and start being guides, when they learn to invite their teams into a story where every person has a role worth showing up for, the engagement changes, the ownership changes, and the results change. That's what we're building. Until next week, I'm Craig Coyle, and this is the Frontline Leadership Podcast. Let's lead.